What the city is talking about. This is Montreal Now on News Talk Radio, CJAD 800.
Over the next few months, we are now saying, okay, this is it. We're out of the pandemic. We have made a lot of measures, for example, new salaries to the nurses and the agency that we want to sever and everything. So I think we are at the crossroad when we can say, what is the vision on how we're going to reinforce the public system, but still need the private when we need them at the right time.
So that's Health Minister Christian Dubé today. Now, Sunday was about we might eliminate the private healthcare. That's what we need to do. James Mennie is on the line at the Montreal Gazette. Jim, just before I go to you, so Don Kagan-Fleming, you led the news with this story. Christian Dubé's walking back what he originally said?
Yeah, he's saying he misspoke this morning. Now, he's still supporting the idea of, doctors having to stay in the province after graduating and work here, but he made a pretty big statement that got a lot of political attention today that he would gradually wean Quebec's healthcare network off of the private side. And now he says he misspoke. It's going to stay as a compliment.
Don, thank you. So, Jim, he misspoke. This is a pretty big thing to misspeak about, isn't it?
Well, my first impression is that perhaps a few burly neurosurgeons went up to him and said, "Nice little system you got here.
Yeah.
If anything were to happen to it." Listen, when you listen to what Mr. Dubé is saying right now, he's saying, "Well, the private sector is good so long as it can bail out the public sector,"
right.
Which is 100% true. And that's what the private sector has been doing. And if you want to turn around and be shocked and horrified that there are more than 700, almost 800 physicians who are not a part of the public sector in Quebec, even though Quebec Solidaire claims that in the rest of the country there's only 12. There may be a reason for that. Maybe our system is so broken that there are doctors out there, and as the text you received earlier in the show says, maybe if you gave us what we need to work, maybe if we had conditions that we'd be doing our jobs as opposed to treading water to maintain, some political party's dogma, we'd be in the public sector as well. I also found it interesting that you were talking to the head of the CSN, Madame Sanvid, that yes, she's quite right to focus on doctors, and there should be some sort of payback, but lest we forget, doctors are not the only ones who are working in the private sector. There are a lot of nurses, a lot of technicians, some of whom, I think some of the technicians actually, are able, like doctors, to drift between one sector and the other. This is endemic. This is built into the system. So for Monsieur Dubé to turn around and say, well, I kind of didn't, mean that. What I meant was, it should be there to help us out when we need it. Who knows? Maybe, I was joking before, but who knows? Maybe the private sector executives who Mr. Dubé has named at great expense to the Quebec taxpayer to run Santé Quebec, picked up the phone and said, you might want to stop talking right now because you are clearly setting yourself up to fall. That's not how the system works. Believe us, Mr. Dubé, we know how the private sector works, and you're turning around being a tough guy and getting us in someone's face is not going to help matters at all. And we have seen this before. We have seen Gaétan Barrette, himself, a medical specialist, metaphorically pick up chairs and throw them around and say, there's a new marshal in town, get into fights with every medical association there is in Quebec. And in the end, what happened? Austerity, we had to redo the whole thing all over again. And somewhere, I think, between the two extremes are, somewhere between people saying, the public sector is an absolute shambles, and the private sector is the personification of evil, there is a happy medium. And maybe Mr. Dubé realized that. I have to tell you, my recent involvement with Quebec's medical system, I have to tell you, Aaron, I'd love to tell you it's a living hell, but no, it's working like tickety-boo. Everything's fine. Everything's great. Am I typical? No, but I don't think I'm atypical either. I think somewhere between those two extremes, and perhaps to a certain extent people in my line of work are to blame for that, there is a kind of happy medium that can emerge. But honestly, this has been a hobby horse of the Legault government. Remember, this is the same government that brought in, thousands, tens of thousands of bureaucrats. And lest we forget, the biggest single concentration of bureaucrats you will find in Quebec is in the health sector. So maybe they're having second thoughts. I just hope that in the end, these ripples that Monsieur Dubé caused ever since his comments this weekend will not go too far and disrupt whatever is going on, and quite frankly, convince whatever doctors who are maybe tossing a coin as to whether or not to stay in Quebec to say, oh, it came up tails, I'm getting the hell out of here. That's the last thing on earth we need.
So let me focus on something else, story that actually I saw this morning as well. This time Jean-François Robert is involved, telling universities, I think McGill was involved, U of M was involved. This idea that, please, this new limit you want to put on temporary foreign students here, leave us out. We'd like to be excluded, to which his answer was, not a chance.
Yeah. Well, this has got nothing to do. I think Monsieur Robert, Oscar Derry, François Legault, when it comes to higher education in Quebec, they've all been busted. They've all been blown. What they're up to is very, very clear. The entire rationale behind this entire policy is to weaken, if not eliminate, anything that resembles higher education in English in Quebec. End of story. This will end when Monsieur Legault and Madame Derry and Monsieur Robert get drop-kicked out of office in 2 years. And as I said on the show before, we can only keep our fingers crossed and hope that the damage they're doing now will not be permanent. But the bottom line here, Aaron, is this is absolutely flat out in your face. No reason for it to be done other than to make sure places like Concordia and McGill keep getting diminished on a regular basis, and for especially someone with the ridiculously high number of portfolios like Monsieur Robert, with immigration and French, it just beggars belief to see this government go from one low to the next when it comes to theoretically, trying to improve the education system in Quebec and doing the exact opposite.
If it would have been one thing, it was McGill and Concordia or Bishops, but the U of M is involved in this, so it's not about English anymore, Jim. It just seems to be about education overall, higher education anyway.
Well, that kind of contradicts what they've been saying before, though, right? Wasn't the priority all French language educational institutions had to get priority? They were in danger, Aaron, and the only way those institutions could be saved was to hit English institutions with a sledgehammer. Now they're turning around and saying, well, U to M might be involved. Don't forget, whenever you and I talk about policy, whatever the policy is on the part of the Legault government, a word that inevitably comes up is improvisation. Do you think that's happening today? Do you think it's happening tomorrow? Do you think it's going to happen next week on some other file? Absolutely. I've said it before. I say it again. These people don't know what they're doing, and they're doing whatever they want.
Jim, last thing, and this is going to be my question. We started it today. Obviously, tonight, big night, U.S. election coming up. I know this idea, who do you think will win? We kind of brought this up. I may have mentioned this yesterday as well. What are you going to be looking for tonight when you do watch? Because you will be watching.
I'm going to be watching. I'm going to be listening. I'll be monitoring. And I got to tell you, Aaron, from what we're seeing now from the turnout, which is something that, can't be faked, I have a sneaking suspicion that it won't be instant. It won't be as instantaneous as Donald Trump declaring victory at 9 o'clock in the evening. But I'd say by 11 o'clock, you're going to see a blowout. I'm still maintaining that. I think there have been a lot of votes cast, and a lot of so-called experts in the States, now you'll notice, are covering their butts today. Well, there's been some interesting changes in the last 48 hours. Those polls, that we have been harping on for 2 months, saying it's too close to call, or Trump's in the lead. Look out, Kamala. All that's going out the window. Because why? Because maybe, as difficult as it may be for some overpaid newspaper executives in the U.S. to believe, maybe Americans don't want this shambling basket case as their president for a second time. It didn't work in 2020. It's not going to work in 2024. My God, I hate to say it, I laughed out loud when I heard you talking to Vashi Kapalos talking about, they called in a bomb threat from Russia. Let me get this straight. These are the people who brought you the KGB, the GRU, spy satellites, and basically you got Boris and Natasha calling in from Minsk saying, closed polling station is bomb. there's something wrong with this picture. I think the wheels are falling off big time. I think the millionaires don't want you to know about it, but I think we're going to find out later on this evening. If not later on this evening, certainly tomorrow, the extent of just how much absolute hot air and helium were used to turn Donald Trump into a Macy's Day balloon rather than the sad sack candidate he actually is.
Well, fair to say you're not hedging your bets then. I'm saying that's the only surprise I can imagine, right? The fact that it won't be is it's been projected for so long in every single poll, a close election. So maybe it's not a bad idea. And then for the drinking game tonight, because I'm going to be watching this with friends, and I was thinking maybe take a shot every time a particular word comes up, right? And I was thinking that word should be, it's still too close to call. That seems like safe. Now maybe I'll just go with unprecedented.
Yeah, I think unprecedented is the way to go.
Okay.
Because it's gonna fill a lot of air. And I got to tell you something. So on the one hand, you're saying, I'm sticking to my guns and whatever. Let me put it to you this way: this is not just goop-eyed enthusiasm or infatuation. The fact is, if I'm wrong and if Trump takes over again, it's not going to matter what you or I say about a damn thing.
Right.
We'll be talking very quickly about something else, and it won't be about the election.
By the way, I wonder, I noticed this today, just watching markets. So the Dow today finished up over 427 points. It's up a full percent. That's a significant move in a day. What does that say, Jim? Does it say one thing or the other, or what do you think?
Well, to me, I mean, Aaron, I know you're. I'm a child compared to you when it comes to the matters of investments and business. But I can tell you, when you go to the track and all of a sudden the odds shift on the favorite, and so all of a sudden some money came in from someplace else, the talk is, there's talk out there that maybe you haven't heard of, but a lot of people are realizing it's time to hedge their bets. And I think that's what we're seeing with the markets. I think the markets are realizing that maybe this guy is going to be yesterday's news tonight.
We shall see very, very soon. James Mennie, the Montreal Gazette. Jim, thank you.
That's not.